So can you remember your first experience with the horror genre?
Uh, in terms of working in it or just as
In
a
yeah, in
fan.
yeah, like as a fan, like your first, I don't know, maybe the first horror movie you ever saw, or first time something scared the shit out of you.
Um, I think the first horror movie that really got me was I must have been maybe 5 years old, uh, right around that age. Elm Street Part 4 had come
Yeah,
out,
yeah, yeah.
and my parents rented it. I had young parents, so at that time they were all about it. And I think I caught a few glimpses of that primarily when Kincaid is in the junkyard and he's like locked in the trunk. That was the scariest thing to me as a little guy. And I have a pretty good remembrance of watching the Thriller video, the Michael Jackson video, and the werewolf reveal at the beginning used to scare the hell out of me. Where he's like, "Go away!" and his teeth are. Man, I thought that was gnarly.
You know what? A lot of people cite that as like their first
Really?
thing.
Oh,
Yeah, I was
bummer. I
actually
should have.
kind of shocked.
It was well, maybe it's just like an age thing, but it was that was popping right around the time I was born,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was the effect of that hell of Thriller alone, man. The ripple effect of that in horror seems to really lasted.
And I suppose from that early age, then were you around horror more and more as you grew up?
Uh, yeah, but in more so in that like I wasn't allowed to watch the R-rated stuff, the real heavy stuff. Parents were pretty lenient, but for the most part, I loved horror at a young age, and how I would watch it was usually like the USA Network or like TNT, Joe Bob's Monster Vision, that kind of stuff is how I would get it, absorb as much as I can. My father rented horror movies, but he wasn't as into the 80, the 80 crap, the 80s crap that I really liked, the really fun ones.
Yeah, yeah. And as you became, came into your teens, maybe, coming towards like your 20s and stuff, um, was that something that you leaned into more?
Um, Not necessarily. I was wanting to be an actor even back then, so I was more obsessed with
Okay.
just anything in general, anything relating to theater, acting, the writing aspect. I wasn't so specific on the genres. I know I loved it, but it was never like in the back of my head, like, man, I need to get into some horror movies.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that was just a beautiful, happy little accident.
And what was it, I guess, that attracted you to acting and performing and stuff like that?
Just as a very young age, like that was the first job I can remember wanting. Well, when I found out that people on TV made money for doing that, it blew
Mm-hmm.
my mind. And then when someone told me, like at a young age, like just how much money these guys make, it seemed ridiculous to me. It still kind of does. Uh, but like, wow, they can play pretend, and get paid really, really well. So I just, I was always glued to the TV. I read a lot as a kid. I love telling stories and I love absorbing them, and interpreting them. So it was more just about storytelling in general. For me, is the draw.
Yeah. Um, and I suppose, so when you decide that this is something that you want to pursue, um, as a profession, how do you even, I guess, how does someone even go about that?
Oh man, I wish I knew, dude. I'm still lugging away at it myself. Well, I mean, there's a million factors, but and I could never really give advice on how to do it or what to do exactly. Um, I mean, the way I started, I just kind of trained for it. Well, went to school for it. High school was an art school. I went to college for theater, and you just kind of hope to get good at something or hope to feel confident at something. And depending on your location, I imagine it's granted the pool is a lot bigger, but more primary cities, like Los Angeles or Atlanta, bigger places like that, there's probably more opportunities more big opportunities to work in. But for me, I stayed relatively, in the Midwest. Um, just just try to get good at it, man. If you can do as much theaters as you can, and try to stay. Definitely have a fallback. I would say that definitely have a fallback. It's not. It's because it's not for everyone. And the last place you want to get is halfway, in midlife, realizing, my God, I've made a mistake for all this time. Um, Try to nab yourself an agent, man, and just start putting in work little by little. Learn as much as you can, because another thing I've learned at this point, it's not always about the acting that you're doing. There's also a lot of other things to think about. It's not easy. I wouldn't recommend it, but another thing I've learned is if it's in them, they're gonna do it no matter what. That's kind of what happened with me. I just couldn't imagine a life not doing it. So it's saddle up, man, and embrace yourself, because it's for every for every winning moment, there's a few losing moments. You know. And,
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme across like anybody I speak to in the industry in general. Um, is kind of that conversation maybe you need to have internally about like, is this really what I want to do, or have I just seen maybe some of the glitz and the red carpet and went, oh, I want to do that because that guy done it and it looks cool and fun, or is it something
mhm.
that you genuinely, like you just said, living a life where you can't see yourself not doing it?
Yeah, yeah. It's something you're gonna have to. You must be prepared to suffer for it. For every victory, there's a lot of suffering in there, and the really strong, man, they make it out. And a lot of the time, it's not really about talent, man. It's just about grit, gumption, and the will to survive. In a business that's just it's only gotten bigger and bigger. These past couple of years, especially the horror genre. So.
Yeah, yeah, big time. And for you personally, I'm sure there's a lot of this up and down motion um, throughout throughout that kind of work. How do you personally, I guess, try and level that out as much as possible and not have like, you've had some, especially within the horror genre, like iconic roles, and then say like in the downtime, how do you stop yourself from completely, I guess, nose diving into the ground?
Oh man, uh, whiskey helps. Yeah, well, whiskey helps, and I got a pretty strong support system. Man, wife and,
Yeah,
and kids. There's plenty to keep me focused on other stuff. And as far as like getting too into I'm a horror movie actor thing. I also got plenty of family that they'll bust my balls if I get too too into myself. I got plenty of folks that knock me back to earth.
um, maybe not in the same sense, but when you decided that this was something that you wanted to do, I always get a lot of people that message me or email in when they hear about certain guests, and something that seems to come up time and time again is the question of dealing with maybe naysayers, or because I feel like especially when you pick something quite unique, like acting or being involved in the film industry in general, it's kind of seen as a little bit oh yeah, of course you're going to be an actor, and people will kind of, I don't know if it's like cast their own doubts onto you or whatever. Um, have you dealt with that in your life? And I guess how do you? It's very hard to put the blinders on when you've got people telling you that stuff.
Yeah, it's the negativity is palpable on almost. I mean, yeah, especially if it comes to like online reviews and things like that. For every good review, there's another one that's not good, and the that one side of me wants to say kiss my ass, you know. Uh, but it's also it's not a fight. It's not even a fight. It's not anything I want to get too involved in, because everybody's got their own opinion. It's just some people tend to be a little meaner than others, and an opinion's an opinion. It's no big deal. But it did. It shook me. Uh, I think with maybe one of the first films I did that started getting like reviews that were just mean and stuff. It did. It affected me a little bit, but it's just you just press forward, man. And hope that with each time you learn something, each one gets better and better. And there's no movie that's universally loved. So
Yeah, and,
yeah.
and for some reason I don't know why, but a lot of times the negativity always seems to rise first.
Oh yeah,
Um,
big time. Well, it
yeah,
sells, man. The who doesn't like to read like a scathing review of something? They're like so those like mean tweets on Kimmel. Like
yeah,
man, so,
yeah.
some of the stuff like I remember one slam I got uh, uh, on a film I did that I mean it was a funny. I'm big on comedy too, So I mean I couldn't help but laugh because it cracked me up a little bit. Uh, are you familiar with that movie Don's Plum?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
DiCaprio, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
how they
yeah.
someone said, "Hey man, like if this guy ever blows up, he should do with I don't want to say the movie, but it's on this list here." Uh, he said you should do with this film what DiCaprio did with Don's Plum, man. Like, oh, man, that was funny, but you're a dick.
Is that
So
something? When I talk to people like yourself who are living this life that how would I phrase this? I think a lot of people from the outside looking in, they see you star in these movies and they see the names getting bigger and bigger. The IPs or the titles of these movies, the exposure gets bigger and bigger, and they kind of imagine, you know, that you're kind of on this pedestal and you don't deal with anything that like regular people deal with, and it's all great and happy all the time. There's no negativity, everything's perfect. Um, but then I always hear, people are able to kind of pinpoint little things that might have been said to them or something that might have been mentioned to them. Is that like I guess, a driving force for you even more? Is that something that like is maybe not something you're thinking about or even care about, but maybe in the subconscious it's there as like you'll see.
yeah, yeah, it's always. I mean, because with each title, I want them to get better and better. But if I try to view it from the way like outsiders are like, hey, there's a name, the titles are getting more and more. It is funny to me because I never I do these things essentially for me. Um, like I can disregard the reviews at the end of the day because if I watch it, I'm proud of it. There's not one film that I've done that I'm not proud of in some way. So ultimately, I mean, I'm kind of doing it for me, and it's fun for me, my dad, my wife. It's a fun thing for all of us to kind of, hey, I'm making movies now, but at the end of the day, man, I'm still paying bills, putting kids to bed, changing diapers and shit all the same. So as far as like some kind of star pedestal, I don't. That's not even in my head. Pedestal wise, I just want the movies to get better and better.
Is it strange, I guess, for you, growing up and having this dream or this thing that was just like inside you that you were like, I this is something I just have to do regardless of the outcome. Um, do you ever get a chance maybe to kind of step back a second, like if you're at a convention or, people are sending you images of your characters in these movies and asking them to sign it and personalize it and stuff, like that's got to be uh great for, I guess, the ego in one sense, but like it's got to be wild, right? To like look at that and go, this is like, bigger than just what I'm doing. Like,
It was, man. I think the first thing I ever signed, and I remember just about everything I've ever signed because, again, it's something I never thought I would ever get the chance to, and all of a sudden you find yourself doing it. Like, wow, I'm usually the guy on the other side of the table.
yeah,
Um, it's wild, man. It's certainly not lost on me. The fans, the people that watch this stuff, that's who we have to thank. So, I mean, any opportunity I get to do that, uh, I do it because I mean, again, it's the fans that kind of butter the bread for clowns like me to get to do, what I wanted to do my whole life. So it's not lost. I mean, it's really really it means a lot to me to do that actually, and it's with every instance it happens. It's awesome. Like it's a good feeling.
I don't know if you would maybe agree with this, but at least in my opinion, I find that the horror fans and the horror community are like, while they can be ravenous at times and jump on things they don't like, I feel like more often than not, they seem to be way more supportive than a lot of communities for a lot of other genres or subgenres. I mean,
Hmm.
even from like merchandise, physical media, supporting things, sharing things, getting involved in things, wanting to see all the interviews, hear all about the people behind it, and really get into the nitty gritty. Do you find that as well? That like the community as a whole are like
Oh yeah,
super
man.
passionate?
There's no there. I mean, you actually put it pretty well. There is no community I think more loyal, uh, more indebted to like the cause than the horror community. And yes, the flip side to that is yes, they also when they're passionate about something, they are fucking passionate
Yeah.
about it. To the bone, Jack. Like they and I love it. I love the passion there, and just whatever you're doing, something you just hope to God you end up on the good side of that coin. Or like, oh
Yeah.
shit, I can't go to this convention. They hated this last one.
For people that don't know, then what was your first like I don't know, I guess like your breakout role or whatever, and I guess twofold on that, like how was that experience to actually finally be professionally on set?
Oh my god, dude, was I'd say the breakout role, like everything kind of it was a culmination of a bunch of things, but I found myself cast in the movie Haunt,
Yep.
and I had not an inkling of the scale of the movie, like what it was gonna be like. Man, I thought it was gonna be just an extended version of these like low budget short films that I did. I'm expecting a green. They show up, and they point me towards the food trucks and all this. It looked like the Sony studio. It was so big. And that's your trailer over there. I'm like, my what?
Yeah.
My my trailer. So I go open it. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? This is bigger than my first apartment. It was scary in the sense that like I felt like a fish out of water. Like what the hell did I like? These guys hired the wrong dude, man. I don't. I this is huge. I thought this was, uh, but man, the pieces all fit together on that one, and the response to it when it came out, it got a little fucked with, I think, because COVID and stuff happened. I think that hurt its release potential, but the crowd it found after the fact
Mm.
is was stunning, and the fact that it with every year, like every Halloween, it seems to garner more and more fans. It just man, I mean, and it's still like I still remember the feeling of standing there, and like just whatever I came to the set in before I get the ghost stuff on, and just being like looking around at all these moving pieces, the set being built over here, all these other trailers. I'm just thinking, how the hell did I get here? And Jesus, you better not let them down. That's what it all comes down to. Jesus, do your job, and don't let them down.
And I find as well, and I guess just to touch on what we just talked about a second ago about the community,
Mm-hmm.
um, I feel like that the I guess the saving grace with the horror community is there's been a lot of times I think where movies have had an unfortunate release and something's either fucked with it or messed it up, and it's kind of maybe not had the potential on release that it should have.
Yes.
And but I do feel like that nearly always, more often than not, the horror community eventually comes full circle to kind of save those movies. Like you find that, like you just said, like Haunt is one of those ones that seems to year on year build and build and build. And I do definitely feel like
Mm-hmm.
that, even in 20, 25 years, we're going to see those things where you're going to have like, 20th anniversary panels, and I think
Mm.
that kind of shows maybe the strength of like the community, but also the work. I don't think it gets obviously, and I do think you're right about that. I think the release, it probably could have completely skyrocketed, only for I
Mhm.
guess unfortunate events. But
Yep.
I definitely feel like that the group that it's found, it's just going to become one of those cult movies, which I think is great.
Me
Um,
too, man. Me too.
for you mentioned there, like being on set or whatever, and you have that feeling of like, fuck, they've got the wrong guy here. I shouldn't be here or
Mhm.
whatever. Do you think that's something that, because I find there's a lot of people I think who don't do things just out of fear, for aspiring actors and things like that. Is that something that you just have to push through? That like imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Yeah, it is, man. I mean, granted, there are probably other performers that have a better confidence level than me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That can get there. I mean, homework aside, all the homework I did, and it didn't. Still, I still felt like I still have to prove myself here. Uh, the imposter thing. If my advice to someone coming up, if the embrace that feeling and use it as something to conquer, because if you can do that once, then that's the only time it'll be a problem for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
And I gradually gained more confidence with every role to where I finally, the past probably 2 years, I finally feel like a confident person
Yes.
in front of the camera. Now I can focus on other shit, and I'm past the fear of what if this don't look good? What if I'm an imposter? What if I've been fooling myself this whole time?
Yeah. That's something that seems to people mention over and over again. Just to focus on Haunt for a second, how did that actually come to be for you? Like, you mentioned there a second ago that you didn't really realize, I guess, the scope of how big the movie was going to be. So how did that all come about then initially for you?
There's my agency. There's a casting director in Cincinnati, and this movie, I guess, was set to be filmed in Kentucky, which Cincinnati's right next to Kentucky. And the casting director, I think, got out to the agencies asking for these types because I guess they wanted to cast the bad guys locally. I got on that list. I gave one reading for casting director, and I remember, with the sides they give you, not a whole lot is revealed, but I remember the scene I read, and it was the "Do you want to see my face?" bit. That was the little bit I read, but there was nothing in it that really, not enough detail given to where am I? Can you answer me this? Is he a bad guy? The ghost? And her eyes just light up. She's like, oh yeah, yeah, he's a bad guy. So I'm like, okay. So I kind of play it that way. I get a call back about callbacks, and I show up to callbacks, and knowing I was going to be late for play rehearsal that night by coming here, but I had to do it. Run into the guy directing the play at the callback. I guess he's trying to do the same shit as me. We're both going
Mm-hmm.
for the same stuff. I met with Beck and Woods there. Did one more reading, left, and this is the always been the hardest part of the business for me is the time from when you walk out of the door of an audition to the time you get a call or you don't,
Mm.
because you're never told that you're not getting it. Usually you just don't get it. So say you feel really good about it, you're checking your phone every hour for maybe two
Yeah.
or three
This.
weeks until you slowly have to let it go. And it sucks because that'll happen so many times where it can take a toll on a person, whether or not they want to keep doing it. And I think I was on the verge of calling it quits right around then, man, because I was starting the family at the time, and uh, there was money outside of this business, and it was probably safer money. But Haunt, when I got that call, everything changed. I got that email, everything changed.
It's it's so wild to hear that, the maybe the thought crossing your mind about like packing this in, and to think that all of the things that you would have, and then I guess from a selfish perspective, us the fans would have missed out on between then and now. Like even in a short space of time, the amount of things that you've been involved in that have been like pretty huge in the genre. It is kind of like I don't know if it's something that once you kind of shine once in that, you just kind of get swept into this whirlwind, and you seem to kind of
Mhm.
show up in all these different projects. Um, so I mean, moving on from Haunt, after everything happens, you kind of you feel all those feelings and energies and whatever, and the movie wraps, and then it comes out. What's your kind of I guess you had said there like the release was a little bit fucked with because of everything. What were the initial, I guess, feelings?
On for just for Haunt.
Yeah, like when Haunt was set to be released or whatever, like how were you feeling about the whole thing, and
Um, I
was it?
had I had a good amount of faith in the film itself because there was a vibe going around the whole time while we were filming it, and
Yeah.
that it was special. That
Mm-hmm.
even the costume lady Robin said that to me. So I think we got something special here, and that always stuck with me because it turned out to be a pretty special movie for me at least. I can't speak for everybody. That but for me it was really special. There is a great amount of you get a little afraid because so many films get caught up in like the distribution process, and some get canned for a while, no matter how good they are. So you always really just hope, that the fucker's going to see the light of day,
Yeah.
right? So if you know you can achieve that, you hope for the biggest reach possible, and it doesn't always happen. Except regardless of the film. So I think the a couple movies I think have been kind of looked over or not handled in that sense to where they could have been reached or seen more. But they all had digital releases after that. Like Wrong Turn did really well because that was really affected by 2020. There, that release
Mm,
saw that in the theater. There, it was when everybody was sitting 8 spaces apart in
yeah,
fucking
yeah.
bubble suits and shit. Uh, so no, it's oh man, I almost forgot where I was going with that.
Was it something? I guess I suppose you've kind of already answered it in a way. So there was a little bit of maybe apprehension about like shit, this thing might just miss its mark. Like we've
Oh yeah.
made something that, uh, and obviously now looking back, you definitely you guys had something, and I suppose the fear of like, is this thing just gonna like fall between the cracks now, and we're gonna get fucked off the back of a stupid situation.
Yeah. I remember me and a buddy from the movie Haunt. I think we were discussing our fear of that at one point some time ago. Like, man, we just like shit. If anything, we just hope it gets seen.
Yeah,
That's what more can we ask for? Just hope God. Let's because the business end of it, man, is uh is heavy. I produced a film last year called Watchdog,
yeah.
um, and it's the little of what I did production wise, seeing what all the what it takes to do it. Uh, man, it's intense. It's
Mm.
intense. It's not an easy business, especially if you're really trying to get something great. It's not easy.
Yeah, I think that's something that really gets missed on a lot of like the general public. Um, of how it isn't as chill, I think, as people imagine. I think they look at someone like Leonardo DiCaprio and they think, oh, he's on a yacht off the coast of France with like 50 models, and that's just
Mm-hmm.
how everybody lives.
Mm-hmm.
And not realizing that it couldn't be further from the truth a lot of times.
Models. He probably has a couple of them on there.
Um, how does it feel for you? I guess to just kind of finally get off the topic of haunt. You know, you're you're seeing now, at least. within the genre as, one of the most iconic, I suppose, modern day characters. Like that mask, that look and everything now has become like
Mhm.
so iconic. I've seen people get it tattooed on them. I've seen countless artworks, merchandise. All these companies are making t-shirts and hats and hoodies and all that stuff. That's got to be kind of nice to see, right?
Blows my mind, dude. And I own one of every T-shirt design. Like, I mean,
Nice.
if I had to grab one of them, I mean, because they're awesome, man. Tear threads and cavity
Yeah.
colors, their T-shirts are just awesome, man. Awesome.
It's one of those things as well. I think, I look at something like that and it's just, and I always try and tell people, behind these roles and stuff, and I'm sure you've probably had these interactions with fans as well, that like to a lot of people it means a lot more than just, oh, another horror movie or a slasher movie or guys in a mask, whatever. Like some people, this is their comfort zone. It's how they get away from the real world, how they deal with depression, anxiety, whatever it might be. And like, to be creating these characters that are like long after you and I are gone, those still exist.
Mm.
It's kind of wild to see.
It is, man. It's it's something. Hell, I think I even said after with each one, I generally assume like each gig, might be my last, because you never know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but you just shit. I had a really funny little point to make, but I have to find a better word for it. Um,
I, I,
you never. I mean, yeah, with each one, you assume you're never gonna work again, because you never, unless you, the bigger you are, the more stuff you get lined up down the
yeah,
ways,
yeah,
more
yeah.
stuff. And whereas in my situation, you got to try to plan it out accordingly, because I still have to try to best I can to work around the family and everything, because got enough kids. I can't. They're all at the age I can't spend too much time away now. Maybe in a few years, but
Yeah, but right now,
you know.
um, were you a fan of like haunted attractions or Halloween attractions or anything like that?
I didn't like visit them religiously or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I went to them and stuff. But I always enjoyed the Halloween season. All the scary stuff was always fun. But usually, man, it was just me and like a VHS player and then a DVD player, and now Blu-ray or something. But
Yeah,
usually
yeah.
that's what I was doing. I'd always opted to watch a scary movie than go to a haunted house.
Are you a are you a collector of any kind or a physical media guy or anything like that?
I used to collect physical media. I have a lot of that. I mean, it's not necessarily horror, just movies, all
Yep.
kinds of movies. I've lessened my collection of that these past couple years, but I still have it all. I try to collect, and this only started recently. Like little mementos from each project, because I'm really bad about. I'm trying to get like kind of sentimental about those little things, but you know,
The
got a couple
fans
little things here and there. That's about it.
the fans are crying out now. That's the shit that they would probably kill each other over.
Yeah.
Um, what I guess I kind of asked this question already, but if you could give a piece of advice to somebody who's following a dream or a goal or a passion, not necessarily, doesn't even have to be acting, doesn't have to be in the film industry, but maybe something that's a little bit off the beaten path. Is there something that maybe you've used or something that somebody has said to you that kind of, I guess, helped you through those times where you're like, oh, maybe I am just full of shit, or maybe this is a stupid idea?
Only thing I would say, man, is an old expression is, whatever it is, give it your full ass.
Yeah.
Don't if you're serious about it, don't let it be a side thing. Don't let it be a hobby. Give it your full ass. Don't half-ass anything, because you'll get half-ass results. If you give it your full butt and everything you got, only then will you see, what you're made of, and if it's right. But you gotta go 100% hard, accept the good with the bad, until you can reach the point where and hopefully it's not too late. But you reach the point where you know whether or not it's for you. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I feel like as well with that, I mean, if you put everything into it and it doesn't pan out, I feel like there's no question left. Maybe it might necessarily be the outcome you wanted, but hopefully you'll be able to walk away with the knowledge of like, well, I did give it absolutely everything.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. And the it's not always achieved, dude. You know,
Yeah.
it's not always achieved. It's a shame that it's the same with just about anything. Just about any occupation. This one's just more glamorized. It's got that glamoury appeal to it, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately it's a gig the same as anything else. You could lose the gig, and lose everything. You could fall from grace just as easy as a corporate fella is laid off.
Yeah.
Things can change at the drop of a hat. Um, and it's a shame, dude. It is. It's a shame, but that's the reality of it.
Moving on from that, like obviously you mentioned wrong turn once or twice there. Um, you know, when the idea of that was being brought around that they were gonna, I guess, reimagine the Wrong Turn franchise. How did that all come about for you? And I guess when you get the call, that you're going to be in this thing. Um, what was the experience like working on such a, I guess, uh, highly established IP?
It was actually my first experience with that, like the idea of getting onto something such an established IP. It did not occur to me, and I've experienced this kind of recently with Malum. Uh, and I should have assumed it because there was like 8 or 9 wrong turn movies.
Yeah,
But I was like, holy shit, after it came out. Here I thought when reading the script, I was like, cool, they're not inbred, deformed cannibals doing, there's no rape, there's nothing crazy, the heads aren't flying and shit. I was like, oh, that's a pretty awesome take, a new take on Ron. They're trying to add, some cinematic quality to it. No offense to the last 4 or 5 wrong turn movies, but I know exactly what they are.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
it's just what sex, murder, but and they were fun. They are what they are. I'm not hating on them, but I thought that the new take on wrong turn would be widely appreciated all around the board. It wasn't. It wasn't. It got good reviews, and I still stand by it. I think it was an awesome flick. I love the direction they took, and the same guy that wrote part one wrote, the reimagining. So I thought that was fail safe. How can you hate a guy for redoing his own material and adding something to it? But yeah, like out the woodwork, this secret society of wrong turn purists come at you like, what? Where's Three Fingers and Belly Toad or whatever the mutants guys' names were. So
yeah.
I saw that. I was like, oh, this reaction is something you can expect when you fuck with an established intellectual property. You have to take it for what it is. But I still believe, and I think all the right people believe that it brought to life an otherwise dead franchise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Wrong Turn was shut. They breathed new life into it. You could see, carry. There's no coming back for me. As you recall, I think I get my face like hollowed out in that movie. So no sequel for me. But there's still more there. I mean, if they really want to explore the foundation, as it was originally called, that the mountain community, they're
Mm-hmm.
called the foundation. If they want to explore that, there's plenty of good stuff there. But that was a crash course in what happens when you dabble in establish intellectual property.
Um, and I guess for me, when the buzz was around all this and nobody really knew too much about what the movie was actually going to be about or how was it going to be, was it just going to be like a modern day version or I say a more modern day version of what we already saw? Was it going to be, inbred mutants again? I think everybody assumed that. And
Hmm.
I was like extremely pleasantly surprised when, in one sense, I was kind of looking for the little bit of fan service where I'd see Three Fingers or whatever, like
Yeah.
a modern day interpretation. But then at the same time, I was kind of like, would I though, or would that have just been for the first 5 seconds of being like, oh look, there he is again, a different version, and then I would have been like, oh, this is the same shit though, just with like a bigger budget, so I don't care.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
that's what
they,
I
they
kind of
they they took
appreciate
that
about it.
whole the foundation, the people there from the Civil War, that kind of matched them versus that older generation, like the Boomer generation that
Mm-hmm.
Nate Rhodes played, versus the Millennial generation. All of these ideas about how to live and how to be kind of clashing, and the Boomer ended up kind of saving the day. Shows up with his rifle and shit. Get in, honey. We're out of here.
I thought it was
I
a
love
very good
that.
movie.
Yeah,
Um,
I enjoyed it, man.
yeah, I think it was interesting. Would I probably already know the answer to this question, but did it in any way, um, I guess, put you off the idea of being involved in like existing IPs? Because the question I was going to ask was, is there an existing character franchise or something that would be on your radar to be like, I'd love to make one of those movies, or I'd love to play Freddy Krueger, or I'd love to.
You just said it, bud. I am lobbying very hard, very strong to be thrown in the ring for consideration if they revamp the Elm Street series. I would, even if like that's where my career ends, for that. I think it's I would that's what I want to be Freddy Krueger if I could.
I don't take this the wrong way, but the reason I mentioned Freddy Krueger was coming into this, I was like, you know what? I think there's a really good Freddy Krueger in there.
All right.
I know that could be taken as an insult in one sense, but I don't mean it in that way.
Hey, Ben, I'm a missus with it. Hey, it's
Um,
more likely for me to get the part.
especially
They,
now
they,
that,
they, they didn't hire Jackie Earl Haley because he's drop dead gorgeous. You know what I'm saying?
but I just mean in mannerisms, in presence on screen. I think there's definitely a Freddy Krueger in there, and that's why I mentioned it to see would that be something you'd be like, oh, I wouldn't like to do Freddy, or because I feel like a lot of people are um, afraid of the character of Freddy in the sense of obviously he has a hell of a lot of dialogue and mannerisms and stuff. So I think maybe people favor put me in overalls and a Michael Myers mask, and I can't fuck it up
Yeah,
too bad.
but yeah, that's much easier. Not that kind of stuff isn't. There isn't a way to make it really stand out. Like
Of course, yeah,
Kane Hodder was the first Jason to make you. Oh, well, fuck, that's Kane Hodder.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
He gave Jason asthma. So once he started breathing, we're like, okay, well, the breathing is going to be Kane for a few movies. Um, there's a way to do things even under a mask, where you can really stand out.
hmm
My buddy Damien Maffei, who's actually in damn one, two, three, four, and five movies listed here. Uh, he is well, he's awesome. I forgot what I was going to say about him, but he's awesome. Uh,
Like obviously down below here in the list are just some of the titles that I pulled that you've starred in. We have Time's Up, Terror Trips, which features some of the same team. Damien, Hannah, just to name a few. Um, how do you find working with the same people on like multiple different projects? Is it difficult when there's like, I guess, maybe real life relationships, or does that make it easier?
uh, I get on pretty well. We don't really, in some instances, we'll set out to do the projects kind of together with like each other in mind or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I love working with them. The more you work with somebody, the more you kind of anticipate them. Really dig into some character work, so I enjoy working with the same people, or it could be a totally different group of people. Every one of these cats got stuff going on. Opposite. We all kind of got our little things, but it is fun, especially like when I work with LC Holt or Damien or something,
Yeah, yeah.
because Damien and I go back to Haunt. That's where I met him. So
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of been there once I started making footing in here, and he's the reason I brought him up is he's another cat that, I mean, in like Strangers Pray at Night, no lines, just that mask, but damn it if he didn't stand out, as this menacing figure, and his eyes did a lot. So there's a way to play like a role of Jason and really make it stand out, but it's the dialogue that Freddie has. That's the kind of stuff that I'm really after.
Yeah.
That's the stuff. It's the personality behind it. Because how can you don't want to ever say, God, I want to be better than Robert Englund. No, you just want to make Freddy Krueger as awesome as he can be without without ripping someone off, making it original.
Yeah, and it's funny because, I've seen people mention the idea of um, multiple Freddys potentially, as in Freddy being more of this kind of like, I guess, overarching entity, and it could manifest itself in several different versions or whatever. So it doesn't. I know when you've got someone established as Robert Englund, everybody just assumes it has to be his face, and I think that's one of the biggest issues. But I think if done right, again, it's like, I feel like it's the same idea as Wrong Turn. It's one of those things where people just get so hung up on, this is the way it always has to be. It needs to be like this, and maybe if we just relaxed a little bit on that, on being the purist, you can still enjoy a reimagining or a remake or a different version without,
Yeah, yeah,
it's not like you're. That's the thing about the horror community sometimes, like they're so loyal to certain things that they feel like they're like cheating on the original by
yeah.
doing
No, and
that.
I really dig this, the sense of community about that. I love the loyalty. It's just blows when you're on the other side of that
Yeah.
coin. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the most recent movie that you're in that's like doing the rounds at the minute, it's making some big noise. Obviously, you mentioned it earlier, was Malum, which is a remake, a reimagine of the 2014 movie Last Shift. I've recently had Anthony on the show while he was like in the works of getting this thing together. How did you come to be in this movie? And maybe for people who don't know, what what's your role?
Man, that's everything seems to kind of circle back to Haunt. I swear, because when I met for Wrong Turn, Mike Nelson really enjoyed Haunt, and that's essentially what got me into the room. Uh,
Nice.
with the Last Shift reboot, um, what a fucking fantastic, what a fantastic movie that was. Um, I went. It came through the agency, and I read it, and it was a really dark point of the script too. But I gave a read on camera, and
Mm-hmm.
a week later, usually you get a call about a callback. A week later, the agent called and said, "Hey, Anthony wants to talk to you." I said, "Holy shit! Straight to a conversation, huh? Cool. Let's." But even I still didn't know if I had the part. We have this conversation, me, him, and I'm not sure if it was the casting director on the line, but we spoke a little bit. I told him the vibes I got from just what I'd read, and they hit all the right buttons with him, because
Mm-hmm.
these vibes I was getting from it, and it's a happy coincidence that I was just, I was a big Clive Barker fan, um, like big Clive Barker fan, and he came up under Clive Barker,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so I noticed these awesome things in the script, man. Like I was reminded of awesome Clive Barker stuff, man. Like Lord of Illusions, I always loved that.
Oh, it's such a
I
good
saw
movie.
this awesome thing, and he basically said, hey, there's gonna be some makeup and shit. We saw Haunt, you know, you cool with this? And I said, yeah, yeah. And right as it ended, I said, well, wait a second, do I have the job? You know, like we've been talking. It's like I'd be a little let down if I didn't get the job from here on. Uh, and they just kind of like giggle. They say, we'll let you know soon, but keep your phone on. I'm like, bet. So within like an hour or two, they said I got it. I got the full script. I read through it, loved it, and I had seen The Last Shift already. I saw it years before, and I thought it was just an awesome flick. That went overlooked. I found out it was him redoing his own vision. I was like, oh, cool. Who better? You can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
How could you get mad at somebody for remaking their own movie? I mean, you're gonna have to yell at Sam Raimi for that. He did the same thing, and you guys are fucking great with it. No one ever talks about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He did the exact same thing. Got a better budget, made a slightly bigger movie. Uh, so I didn't go back to watch The Last Shift after I got it because I remembered very little about the cult aspect of it because there wasn't a whole lot of that in The Last Shift.
Mm-hmm.
So I never went back to rewatch it until Malum was over and done with. Man, went to that was filmed in Kentucky. What a blast, dude! The costumes were awesome. If I could go back in time, I would have taken it and like begged forgiveness later. Be like, dude, this turtleneck, the jacket, like I need it. Let me keep it. What an awesome little flick, and that was another instance where the IP came into question because, like Wrong Turn, there was this block of Last Shift purists also. that a lot of the negative stuff they say, and I'm like, they didn't even read. They had no idea this was the same guy doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, and instead of having to explain that, I'm like, whatever. 84% positive on Rotten Tomatoes is my response to that. The guy made a really good movie. My advice to people is you don't have to see The Last Shift to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend seeing both of them, but they're not meant to be watched, meant to be compared to one another either.
Yes.
So there's a lot of people that are like, "Oh, Last Shift's way better." I'm like, it was a good movie. I'm not saying it wasn't, at all. It was very good. I think Malum kicks just a little bit more ass. That's all.
For because I don't know, how much we want to get into it, because obviously this thing is still kind of out there and gaining more and more traction, I think, as the days go by. But just to give people, I guess, a little bit of a look inside or whatever, what is your character and your role within the movie? And then maybe I see a lot of people out there kind of hear that it's like a remake of Last Shift, and they kind of can't understand. Wait, he's just making the same movie again?
Hmm. That's when they're like, "Why would they remake this? It's not even a decade old. It's the same guy. Give him a break a second. All he's going to do is
Mm-hmm.
expound on his original idea.
Yes.
That's all. And I'm in the film. It's about a young rookie police officer. She takes the shift at a closing police station in hopes to kind of find closure as to why her father went on committed a massacre like the year before. Uh, Ties into some cult doings and ties into her family's history. It's a gnarly grisly walk through hell. I play John Michael Malum, a cult leader who has reasons of his own to do the things that he's doing, and I aim to make her Last Shift a very memorable one. That's all I'll say without ruining anything. But
Yeah, yeah.
if people check it out, man, I think they'd really like it. It's you can feel the influence that Clive Barker influenced, man. The body horror element that he, in my opinion, man, kind of solidified because you don't get more gnarly than like Hellraiser, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of skin and fleshy gore and shit like that. So if they like gore and a strong story and some damn good performances, Jessica Sula in the lead carries this film on her back like an absolute G, man. She's really good. The whole cast was good. De Blasi did a fabulous job, and we were talking earlier about that feeling like once a movie wraps to where it would come. This one I felt I was the most anxious for because I knew it was going to be awesome. I'm like,
Yes.
God damn, just get this bad boy out. Like I knew it was going to be liked. Uh, And with everything, there's people that don't like it, but I knew it would get a reaction, because it was a good flick. Uh,
Yeah, and it's another one of those ones I think that you've been involved in that as time goes on, that's going to be another kind of a cult classic where we're going to see, 10th anniversary panels and 20th anniversary re-release Blu-rays, special edition, whatever it is at the time. Um, we've already touched on. I had a couple of final questions before I let you go. About
yeah,
a franchise or a role that would be on your bucket list to play. So we're going with Freddy Krueger. Yeah,
yeah,
that's your
oh
number
yeah,
one. Yeah.
absolutely, Elm Street all the way.
Um, Going forward for you, there is something that I want to touch on. It's actually down below us here that I think that a lot of people are hyped for, and I know there's not too much out there about it, and I'm not sure how much you can actually say, but it's the Mutilator 2.
Mhm.
How did that first come across your desk or whatever? And because it seems quite, I guess, for fans, it's a sequel to the 1984 movie, right?
Yes, very, very meta. And again, it's funny, man. Like I said, everything kind of leads to another. It was originally Maffei, Damien Maffei, who brought up
Mm-hmm.
Wrong Turn to me, saying essentially saying, "Hey, man, did you know that not too far from you, they're going to be filming Wrong Turn?" And somewhere down the pike, I got the audition with Terror Trips. I got that job based on Wrong Turn. That's where I met Jeff Seaman, and he liked it, so he hired me for Terror Trips. Um, Terror Trips, Jeff Seaman would be the assistant director on Mutilator 2, so he threw my name in the ring. I didn't have to read for it. I signed on for that sight unseen because it was another chance to be, work with Damien. And after 4 or 5 movies together, we finally get to have some damn screen time in this together without masks. And I think fans will kind of dig that. If assuming he and I still have fans, I think they'll kind of get a kick out of that. They're like, "Holy shit, these two guys, no masks, just straight up, what a bunch of clowns." No, it's a very meta sequel to the original Mutilator. In this film, they are making the Mutilator 2 at the same location as the original Mutilator. Only
Nice.
someone takes the slicing and dicing too literally, and starts doing their thing on the pier and the beach and whatnot.
Is there is there any, as far as you're aware, and I know obviously there's nothing's been set in stone, but are we expecting to see that movie this year?
I believe so. I know it's there's all kinds of rumors about its distribution. Last I saw it, they were seeking it. I think seeking it, in terms of like what's the widest release it can get,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. I know there's been some chit chat about Shutter picking
Yeah.
it up, uh, which I can't speak for the production company or anything, but that feels like a pretty safe place for it to go, considering the Joe Bob, man, who doesn't love it, and it feels like it belongs on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
drive-in. It really does. I
Yeah.
was there, I feel, and it's gonna be fun. It's it don't take itself too seriously. It's gonna be a fun splatter fest. That much I can guarantee.
What is it like to to get these roles and to play the villain role um for you? Like, is there a process to that you kind of have to zone in on to kind of get that, because obviously uh from the last, what, 60 minutes, like you're a chill, like, cool guy, kind of laid back. How do you, I guess, switch into that, that villain? Like, even when you mention something like Freddy Krueger, like Freddy Krueger's psychotic at the back of it all.
It's I think Laurence Olivier. I'm pretty sure it was him. He said something along the lines of like he doesn't feel like the character until he wears the character's shoes, until he like puts the costume shoes
Mm-hmm.
on. With me, I'm almost thinking about this stuff. Like if I'm doing a role, it's almost on my mind
Yeah.
many minutes of every hour every day, so it's always in my head. And I kind of like to use, like, if I need a button to get somewhere, like where I need to be, I'll have create like a totem, um, something to really hone the focus on. It kind of absorbs it for me. I use it as a to help kind of get me there, and it can be any small little. I mean, it could be a damn toothpick or something, but that's in the chaos on a film set. A lot of people always kind of forget that what's in this little frame here, there's like 70 people standing right outside
Yeah,
of it,
yeah, yeah,
barely, almost coming into it. They're like right here. Uh, so there's a lot that goes in. It's, sometimes it can be hard to hit those moments if you're doing it over and over and over again. So I'm methodical. Like I'm set up for almost any curveball that can be thrown. You know, I have a contingency for a contingency. If that don't work, I'll do this. Either way, I'm gonna get there because I ain't wasting nobody's time. I don't want to waste
yeah.
nobody's time. I let the pressure of the situation kind of get me there. You know,
Has um has the idea of maybe writing or directing ever, obviously, you mentioned producing something, the idea of, maybe penning your own movie, short film, or directing, has that ever crossed your mind?
it has crossed my mind, man. The idea of directing. I would have to start pretty small. I've tried to write before, but I'm one of those writers that'll give 20 minutes and feel like I'm onto something, and then read it 20 minutes later and throw it away. I've been writing the same genre horror script for like 12 years. You know, it's not one that, like, let's say hypothetically I finished it, I could direct because it'd be just too big. Filming
Yeah,
on water is a whole thing. So I couldn't helm that, but I'd be excited to try it one day. I got a friend of mine, Hannah Fearman from
yeah,
Terror Trips, Times Up,
hmm,
and stuff. She's been directing a lot these past couple years, and
yeah,
she's just excellent at it. Like, she's really good. The more I see actors do it and be really good at it, the more hope I have for me to one day do that. And I got a hell of a crew too. I mean, if I wanted to, I've got really gifted dudes behind the camera. Like guys I'm happy to know now, because
hmm.
pretty soon they're going to be way way too expensive for me.
How important is that actually? Because you've mentioned several people uh, multiple times there, and it was just something that came into my mind. How important, in your opinion, is it? When you make these relationships with a select group of people, that kind of are maybe a little bit closer to you, and that support system within your profession. Would you say that's like a key aspect, is having that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, uh, absolutely. It's because if things don't work out, man, you can always come home.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
And it's cool to have them. I couldn't imagine my life without them. We're a package deal. With me comes them, because I need them, and they're little kids. But sometimes I think I need them more
mm-hmm.
than they need me.
Yeah. And as regards like the handful of relationships maybe you've made throughout working on different sets and movies that maybe have stuck around, you mentioned Damien and a handful of other people. Um, is that something that's like important, that like you guys kind of help to, I guess, to build each other up or network and
It is to me. I mean, I can't say how anybody else, but it is to me. I like having buddies in the biz, and I have a nickname for some of them, like the old Terror Trips crew there, like me, Elsie, Hannah. We call us I call them the Reliables. We're the Reliables. You know, you can always count on us. We'll be there on
yeah,
time. We'll know our lines. We'll do the job. We are
yeah,
reliable. Okay. Somebody giving you a hard time, call the Reliable. We will do it,
yeah,
because we're just committed to the work. It's never about. I hope this one project, sends me to fucking the MCU. It's just about being comfortable and having the company of people you know that are as committed to playing pretend as you are. Is
Yeah.
committed to it. I mean, essentially, it's child pretend on an adult level. It's a deep level of commitment, and there's a buffoonery aspect to acting. Obviously, I mean, I can imagine how silly I would feel. Like there's a dinosaur coming at you. A green screen.
Hmm.
All right, there it is. Ah! Do we get
Yeah.
it? No, okay, more. That'd be so scary for me. I'd like to try it, but it'd be so scary for me. But I love having the same crew around. It's fun. They're like we call them camp buddies because movies are like camp for adults.
Hmm.
You connect the artistically and as actors, and everything's better when you're comfortable. It's
Yeah.
always good to have a friend around, man. Always.
Um, Going forward, then, into the future, what are some of your, I guess, both personal and professional goals?
Uh, personal wise, man, I just want to be around, long enough for to see all the my family grow up, the kids all become adults, um, continue to just live life, man, on on a humble standard, because
Hmm.
happiness, those little moments, those are fleeting, but the commitment of family love and that's the stuff that's forever. So as long as I can, my ultimate goal as a human is to just keep that, preserve the goodness in that. Professionally, I just man, I'd like to keep working. um, I've dabbled in just about every genre there is, that drama, comedy, horror seems to be what people care the most about,
Hmm.
which is again aces with me, man. um, I just hope to keep working and keep making projects that people dig.
Yeah.
You know.
And I guess to kind of touch on that a little bit, then, obviously, right now you're at the point where you're probably being, handed scripts or ideas are being thrown at you, um, more often than not. Is
Mhm.
it something where you wait to see what comes across your desk, or is there certain things out there, obviously, without giving specifics, but is there things out there that you maybe seek out?
It's a good amount of both. Like just like kind of any independent business, you do kind of have to make things happen for you. There are some opportunities you got to seek out. You got to get in certain people's ears, things like that. But I'm generally open to anything. Like I said, some scripts come in, I'll read them. I love that. They don't always, they're not always fruitful. Like I can't always do them. I dig that, but it's a fine mix of both. Like I still seek out, like if there's something I hear going on that I really want to be a part of, that's when the fingers and the iPads, when that stuff
Yeah,
starts
yeah, yeah,
going. So
yeah.
it's very much, you got to create some opportunities. I think Colin Farrell said that too at one point. He said you don't just end up in so many movies because you're waiting on the phone call. You want to keep working, and you have to also be prepared to firebomb. Especially like in
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood, because they give you chances. If your movie don't make money, they don't cast you again. A studio don't get you again. So to rise above that is, whew, Jesus. That's why independent film's probably more suited for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so two final things. Do you have some comfort horror movies? Is there any horror movies? I know we focused a lot. Like there's, I feel like, and I I was trying to restrain myself from talking about other genres with you a lot because I know you're probably like myself, just into movies in general. But obviously, I was trying to
Mhm.
kind of narrow it into the topic of horror. Do you have horror movies that like you would consider a comfort movie in the sense of you've revisited it multiple times or something you might throw on in the background?
The, the one that really pops to mind is not a good one, and I watch it because it's probably my favorite shitty movie ever. And why I like it. is because it's got, like name actors in it and everything, and the budget's there. It's just a colossal piece of shit, and and I love it. I mean, I love it. I can quote the movie from start to finish. I think what I really like most about it is that I learn so much about what not to do by watching it. Right? Like I can, I'm like, well, that would never fucking work. Don't try that. Don't do this. That didn't work. But it's Yui Bowl. I think that's his name.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's how I pronounce it. Yui Bowl's Alone in the Dark.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
One of the silliest, nonsensical movies ever. But man, I must have watched it, probably 50, 100 times over the years. Something I quote it all the time, like to my brother, man. I'll be like, 713 isn't yours anymore, Carnby. Uh, just because, and Tara Reid says, Newfoundland. Like, you can't write that shit. It's great. Like,
It's
what joy this movie is.
it's funny actually you mentioned that because I used to get so much shit off of people when they would ask about comfort movies, and like I, I probably have hundreds that I could just say, oh yeah, I've watched that like countless times, and I would consider it a comfort movie. But I was a big fan of House of the Dead when I was like super young, and then when he made that House of the Dead movie, that's so fucking bad, but I love it.
Me too. Hey, that is another one, man. Something about it. You're like this. You just sit there and you're like, how many millions of dollars were wasted making this? Wow, this is bad. I also heard there was an effect. The last time a certain camera trick was used was in that movie because it was deemed like so dangerous. Where like circles around them in slow motion, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like dying or whatever. I guess I don't know if somebody got hurt, but that was a risky camera trick. That movie is hysterical from start to fucking finish, man. Both of them are just start to finish, laugh out loud, funny.
And that guy as well. I think it makes it even like more insane how ridiculous that man is as a person as well. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you've seen some of the stuff that he posts online. I don't know if he does any
Yeah,
more,
yeah,
but
yeah.
he's a
I remember
wild
some of
dude.
his rants,
Yeah,
like some of his
yeah,
rants and
yeah.
shit. I'm like, whoa, like my dude, you're gonna have to dial it back. You're gonna lose. You're not gonna be able to make Postal Part 7. You keep talking like that.
Yeah, that dude is
Oh, I
a
did see
madman.
something. Didn't he like challenge a few online critics to a boxing match and he
Yep,
like beat the shit out of them?
yep,
I think he beat the hell. Oh, now that's awesome. That cracks me up.
yep.
Like
He
that.
surely
Like
did. There was
yeah.
one in particular I can't remember off the top of my head now, but this guy was like apparently like kind of a notorious scumbag for just constantly shitting on everything. That was like his thing. And then he took issue with that and he was like, yeah, I'm going to beat the shit out of you.
And I mean, and if we're being real, like I say, a scathing review is kind of funny, especially when it's like eloquently put.
Hmm.
But to pick on Yui Bowl is like, well, why would you put your time into that? That's like picking on a
Yeah,
kid that gets picked on already, like you fucking bully. Well, leave him alone. His movie shit. He knows it.
yeah.
He's got to. Well, I mean, I actually watched the commentary track from Alone in the Dark, and you'd be surprised at how good he thinks the movie is. Like it's
It's
really
weird, right?
funny.
Because I
Yeah.
thought that he was leaning into the fact that like that was maybe his like subgenre of, oh, I'm just gonna make movies, I'm gonna waste millions of dollars and I'm gonna make the most terrible, ridiculous movies, but it's fine because I'm self aware. But then I listened
Yeah.
to some of the stuff around House of the Dead, and like he's talking about some of like the establishing shots and when they first see the camera pan across like the ship as they're coming to the island and stuff. And the way
Hmm.
he's talking about it, I'm like, huh, this isn't like, Schindler's List or fucking Titanic or anything. I was like, why is he, or is he like
Yeah.
playing a character trying to be funny? I'm like, or is he serious?
It cracks me up, man. So I mean, I would not work in a Yui Bowl film just because of the stigma of. Well, I mean, most of his movies are not good. There's a few in there that aren't bad. I thought Blackwoods was actually pretty decent,
Mm-hmm.
but that was before he went. The twist ending in that movie, dude, was kind of. I don't know if it was ahead of its time, but it rocked my
Yeah,
shit. I
yeah,
didn't see it coming. I was like, oh, neat, cool. I
yeah.
like that he has his core group of people that are in like all of his movies. Um, I wouldn't jump at the chance to to a Yui Bowl movie.
I
Maybe
the one
House of the
thing
Dead Part 8.
The one thing I will say about, and I feel like there's a, not that I'm a fan of his or his work or anything, but I'm always attracted to to people who are inherently themselves. Like I love when I speak to, or I can just see from the outside looking in. Like I'm a big fan of Rob Zombie, and a lot of people shit on him, and a lot of people shit on House of a Thousand Corpses and stuff like that.
Pisses me off. Yeah.
And what I love about it is, while it's not a perfect movie, yes, I get it. There's lots of issues with the script and the continuity and this and that. But he just is who he is. He's making his movie. It's the same as when he done Halloween. He made Rob Zombie's Halloween. He didn't make John Carpenter's Halloween. He didn't make Universal's Halloween. He made Rob Zombie's Halloween, which is, I can appreciate when somebody, and even from talking to yourself, somebody who's just themselves. They're not trying to be an actor or trying to pretend to be an actor or be in showbiz. They are who they are. They're doing
Mm.
things in their world at their pace, the way they need to do it. And I kind of like that.
Yeah. I have mad respect for Rob Zombie, man. I love that guy. I don't love every one of his movies, but when I say
Same
The
as.
Devil's Rejects was like one of the best, like top five best movies of the year it came out, it was. Devil's Rejects is like magic in a bottle. I have no idea why it was so good. No idea how. Doesn't make sense, but that movie is incredible from start to finish. It's incredible. The casting, you got more Spalding in there. Got Jeffrey Lewis and Lou Temple there for some like pedigree. William Forsythe just drives it home as Wydell. Man, I love it. I love Rob, and for that exact reason, he is who he is. He
Yeah,
does not make excuses for it. If you got something to say, just you know, get out of the way for someone that likes it.
yeah, yeah, and I love that.
Yeah.
So I guess this has been like I'm gonna curb myself here because I'm conscious of your time, but I could go on and on and on. I feel like we could probably have a 3 or 4 hour conversation. And I'm sure anybody listening probably wouldn't be mad at that, hearing what you have to say. But yeah, my final question would be, why horror, and what does it mean to you? Like the genre as a whole. I know maybe you haven't specifically sought out solely horror, but like you said, it seems to be that's the one where the fans, everybody has really like embraced you and kind of want to see you show up in time and time again.
um, there's something about being afraid that even at a young age captivated me. Like I can't compare it to joy, but there's something about fear. It kind of takes it lowers the inhibitions a little bit, and I always felt more vulnerable watching a horror film. They always seem to get at me, and I can watch a film like Schindler's List or Beautiful Boy and just be ripped to fucking pieces, like a blubbering mess halfway through it. But with horror, it's almost fail safe. Um, like a bad drama is a bad drama, bad comedy don't get laughed at. But with horror, if it's great, people are gonna love it, and some people hate it. But even if it's bad, there's still a good chance that a lot of people are gonna love it.
Yeah, yeah,
Still a good chance of that. So
yeah,
I mean, it's more fail safe. I said it wasn't a choice as an actor to like fall into the horror genre uh, as itself, but as long as there's people that would want to see me do it, I'm gonna do it. You know, for if there's just one damn person in the world that wants to see it, as long as they want to see it, I'll do it.
yeah.
Like Eddie Money, man. As long as they want to keep showing up, I'll keep doing it.
I genuinely think that that's only gonna go from strength to strength for you. Like
Hope
I
so.
said, it was a pleasure and an honor to chat, and I hope we can do it again in the future. Um,
Absolutely, man.
where can people, I guess, keep up to date best with you, or is there anything you'd like to shout out or want people to check out or anything like that?
Uh, we got Malum is currently streaming.
Yep.
Amazon, Google, Voodoo, all the little places. Check it out if you like the demonic subgenre of horror. Freak yourself out a little bit. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'm not on Twitter as much. I don't really have that much to say, but occasionally I'll post like a funny observation or an anecdote or something, a dirty joke, something like that. But I generally answer every single message as long as it's not someone cussing me out for a movie. That hey, this movie sucked, asshole. Like, okay, I,
Thanks.
I cashed that check, dude. Get the hell out of here. You can find me anywhere. I respond to any messages. If anybody wants to shout out, man, it'll be well received. And I hope to keep entertaining and bringing some kick-ass products your guys' way.
For everybody listening, all the links will be down below in the description wherever you're listening to the podcast or on YouTube. Yeah, like I said, man, it's been a pleasure. I actually still haven't seen Malum yet because it is impossible to find in Ireland somehow.
Is it?
So yeah, so I may have to go down the route of a VPN to try and buy it on Amazon or somewhere like that. Everything seems to be region locked right now.
No shit. Well, hey man, when you do check it out, shoot me a message, man. Let me know
Yeah,
what you
man,
think.
because I dig that kind of movie, and I've seen a couple of images of some of the scary shit in there, and it looks freaky.
It freaked me out, man. I'm telling you, we were in a real police station there, and the dark corners of there, and it was so awesome to be walking through a police station without cuffs on. I'm like, oh, nice. That was a joke. But it was a scary environment. You see monsters lurking around these desolate corners of a police station. You're like, Jesus, dude, I'm scared.
Yeah. Like I said, pleasure and honor. I hope we can do it again in the future. I'm sure we'll probably have this amount of movies, if not more, to talk about the next time we revisit.
Hell yeah, man. Anytime, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right, take care, brother.